Yeah.
Okay. So as I turned 18 in May of last year, I realized that I was gonna have, many obligations and like responsibilities that were gonna come along with it. Transitioning from that like childhood state of mind to adulthood. And then just to give you like a little story, I currently live with like my grandmother right now, and we only have like one like TV in the house, like a little small TV. And my grandma likes to watch one channel, just one. And that channel is like, I know it's weird, but that channel is channel 45 in our household, which is Fox News. And for those of you who don't know what Fox News is about, it's all about politics, just politics. So since I'm constantly like watching this every day, I'm always like, I'm getting politics, like drilled into my brain. And I realized that now that I'm 18, I could actually, vote for the first time, and then I can actually, participate in this upcoming election in November. And so yeah, voting is like a quite powerful thing. And then for most of you, I mean, I'm assuming most of you guys are like 18, around that age, right? Yeah. Very cool. And so then you guys can, vote for the first time, and you guys can like partake in this like upcoming election. So having an understanding of what voting is about and how it affects the younger demographic of people, you will have a better understanding of what voting is and how it positively and negatively impacts society. And I will talk about the positives of youth voting, the negatives of youth voting, and the implications if youth voters do or do not vote. So, change that. Okay, so the positives of youth voting, as Eric Plutzer states in the American Political Science Review, Volume 96, Number 1, March 2002, turning out to vote can be the most common and important act a citizen can take in. As most don't realize it, when you vote, you're adding your voice and opinion, to the country, and then as well as you're also exerting your views and beliefs into a candidate that's going to match those same views and beliefs that you have. Let's see here. So you also have the ability and option to represent someone that's going to represent like you. And what I mean you, I mean the people. Like the people's like everybody. Like she's the people. I'm the people. Everybody's the people. So, and then let's see what else. So yeah, we just everybody's like people in a sense. As many say, since we're young, we have the opportunity to like vote and help participate in our country. And I'm blanking out. And then let's see, we have the ability to participate, in our country and help them. And then as most don't realize, voting is like considered a civic duty, even though it's not like required that you have to vote. It's still like considered by many like a civic duty to partake in. And then as Eric Plutzer has previously cited in the American Political Science Review, voting is likely to bring positive reinforcement from friends, family, and coworkers. So as young people take more like advanced roles in society, they're more likely to become like adapt to like participation norms. And then as we're transitioning to that adulthood state of mind, we're still like stuck between like our old childhood habits and like our new like adult habits that we're still trying to become accustomed to. So like now we go to negatives of youth voting. So if we don't vote, then we really can't can't explain how we feel about certain topics, or we can't really have a say in how we feel about politics or something. If nobody really votes, on the younger demographic. And you know, since like many people, like specifically young people, they don't really vote. Candidates don't really focus on the issues that young people feel are important. So like, or like things that the younger demographic feels that should be changed or altered in the country or in society. And let's see. Catherine Ramble from the Washington Post states that millennials, after all, are less likely to have landlines, fixed addresses, voting records, or any tolerance for TV commercials. And so, like for example, I mean, if you think about a candidate that's gonna try to like convince people to vote, they may typically only like try to focus on the older voters, you know, what they're concerned about. So like if we don't really vote as young people or like a younger demographic, we're not really gonna they're not really gonna focus on the issues that we have or that we're really like concerned about. And then like if you think about it, like let's say a candidate now makes a policy that's gonna benefit the older generation. Maybe when we become like older in like 20 or 30 years from now, it's gonna affect us, and maybe it won't affect us in like the best way. Like it may, you know, hurt us or something. And you know, if you know, typically, just like a fact, you know, older voters typically participate in voting and the voting process more than younger people, due to like the fact that some like older people see younger people as lazy, or they just don't really care about politics or what goes on in their country. And then another quote that I got, again from the Washington Post, Catherine Ramble states that millennials have claimed for themselves yet another generational superlative, least likely to vote. And yeah, so now I'm going to talk about the implications on voting. So, you know, if you do vote, then, you know, politicians are going to address your problems and concerns, and they're going to take them into consideration and try to fix them. So, like, you know, the voter increase will become more significant and the polls will become larger, so therefore candidates are going to focus specifically on, you know, the younger demographic. And specifically, 2004 was a significant year for young voters, because there actually a lot more young voters turned out that year than any other year since like 2000. So that was like the most when young voters actually voted. And then just to give us a quote on that was where is it? As I put Frank Esri and Class H.D. Bursey, an American behavioral scientist, 2007. The reasons provided to explain the unusual jump in the 2004 U.S. vote include extensive outreach efforts, diverse campaign issues, a polarizing president, and a tight duel between the candidates. And now if I look at if you look at the implications if young voters do not vote, then typically if young voters don't vote, then their tactics will become are not really effective, especially to like us nowadays, because with social media, you know, we typically don't like to watch like commercials, or typically don't like to hear like long, lengthy like speeches, because that doesn't really we don't really like to listen to that or want to watch that. So, you know, the voting tactics that many like politicians or candidates use nowadays are just really ineffective. And as they claim that millennials nowadays, they don't have no trust for authority in any sense. And I have one more quote. I know I have a lot of quotes, sorry. Where is it? I forget it. Mathis, Albanese, and Classy H for C states the effects of strategic news on political cynicism and vote choice among young voters. Yeah, says that campaign trials as well as the tactics they use in pursuing political victory turns off voters, contribute to cynical and negative public attitudes toward annihilation from the political process. And yeah, so just going over what I covered. I talked about how voting is important. I talked also about how you know, if you vote, you don't appear selfish in a sense, and how politicians try to like reach young voters in like new strategic ways, and then how young voters, you know, don't typically like trust the political process or like any political authority. So now that I talked about this, you guys will have a better understanding about the power of voting. And just to go back to like my story, you know, I guess my grandmother, you know, since we watch Channel 45 all the time, which is Fox News, I guess that's helped me like how I perceive politics and helped me shape the way I look at politics and stuff like that. So yeah.